In this video, we're going to go over the basics of creating color profiles in Ergosoft. First, we will either create a new print environment or select an existing one for us to base our profile off of. Next, in case we're working with a limited area for media or heat press or anything like that, we're going to go into the print environment settings to change out our media size. This will determine the size of our charts going forward. Under the media size option, we can either adjust our margins or add a new media. In this case, I'm adding a new media set to the heat press that I have available. Once you enter in your size, give it a name, click OK, and select it from the drop-down list. From here, we'll get into profiling, starting with the density linearization. This is printing the colors you have in your printer from about 0% to 100% and finding their thresholds. Going into the density linearization options, we'll get a few options in front of us. First, we'll be selecting our spectrophotometer. In this case, I'm using an X-Rite iPro 3 Plus. Once that's selected, we can see the number of patches we want to scan, select it, and click Print. This will begin the process of automatically laying out, rendering, and sending to your printer. Note what your color chart looks like. Starting from 0, going up to 100. You might notice that at the denser side, that multiple of the colors look exactly the same. That's because our threshold hasn't hit the right point for the linearization. So we might be 4 or 5 squares away from the end, but have already hit 100%, which means it's not quite spaced out enough. And that's what we're taking care of here. Once your linearization chart is done printing, make sure to take care of any kind of post-process you might need to do, such as dye sublimation transfers, heating of direct textiles, or maybe even a reactive acid dye being set with steam. You'll need the chart finished before you can scan it. Now we move into measuring the chart. Inside your options, you'll be able to click the measure button. From here, a new window will appear. First matter is to select our spectrophotometer. Clicking the button, you'll have a drop-down menu to select from. In this case, once again, I'm using an X-Rite iPro 3. Once selecting that from the list, I'll click Detect for it to find the USB. After that's detected, we click OK. From here, we go to start the measurements. On doing this, it'll prompt us to calibrate. What this means is to find the white point existing with your spectrophotometer. In this case, it's built into the stand of my X-Rite Pro 3. Note that once you remove it, there's a sealed area. Pulling it back reveals the white. From here, we put the spectro back on its stand, and we're ready to click OK for it to calibrate itself. Now we will be prompted to start measuring our chart, starting at line A1 in this case, where it's prompting you to take a measurement. In the window below that, you'll see that there's a measurement comparison. So, setting up your spectro, scan your chart. This can vary between different spectrophotometers, but normally within the same range of use. Now, once you have scanned data, you'll notice that the measurement values on the bottom are showing a comparison of what was received versus what was expected. And after doing so, the next line in question was brought up to measure B1 and then C1. Now, an error has occurred. This is because I moved outside the right parameters of left and right on the chart. To resolve this, just rescan the measurement that you were prompted to take. Now, you'll notice that there was no error, but I got an incorrect measurement. This could happen if you scan the wrong part of the chart. You'll notice that there's obviously two different colors. So going back to C1, I go to remeasure the yellow instead of taking the wrong line. In doing so, you'll be prompted to correct the error. In this case, we click No to get rid of the old data. Once you've completed the list on the chart, you'll be brought back to A1. You can either continue on, getting multiple sources of information, or go with just the two. I recommend scanning at least twice. After finishing the chart and clicking OK, you'll be prompted to be able to correct the chart. The auto correction button is an easy solution for this. You can go through each color doing so. Once done, click Next, and you can go through viewing each of your color's curves. After you've seen them and you feel confident in the curve structure, hit Next again. Here, we can finish out and we'll be done with the linearization. This is currently linked to the print environment we had selected at the beginning. Next, we move on to our color GPS. This is for printing our overall color swatches and getting a better scale for our color going on for the profile. Once the new window appears, you'll notice the print environment should be selected, but change if needed before clicking Next. Now we're going to be prompted with some different things, including an ink limit, which I'm leaving at this default, and then of course the number of patches we're going to print. Here we can select a different amounts of quality, so to say, fine, very fine, coarse, all these things, and they'll give you a different amount of patches shown below. In the case of this example video, I'm doing a very small amount of patches, but you can see it goes rather high. When creating for your production machine, I'd recommend at least doing 1,000 to 2,000 patches. Below here, you can get a size of your test chart size. This will be linked with the number of pages based on the sizing you did for the media for the print environment. After clicking Print, it will start processing a large color chart for you. Much like with linearization, the software knows what color it told the printer to print, so we'll be scanning these to know what it actually printed, so it can compare the two and create something based off that. Now, once again, after your media is completely set via heat or whatever other process you use, we'll be clicking on Measure. Now, repeat of last time, we'll go and select our spectrophotometer. This might still be selected, but if you had to change out a USB or filter in with your computer, anything like that, worth doing. From there, we go over to Measure, and we'll once again have to recalibrate the spectro if we had to select a new one, or if anything changed with your computer or USB ports. Once you've got that set up for white calibration again, we'll get into measuring that chart. Much like with the linearization, you will start with whatever it tells you to, in this case, A1. And you'll be going through and scanning and scanning and scanning. It goes pretty quickly overall, but it's a worthwhile process. Most people will scan once, some will scan twice, and that's normally recommended. Much like before, it'll bring you back to the beginning after you've finished your first through. Note that you can scan from either side in the case of this X-Rite setup. Once again, we're seeing a what was scanned versus what was printed. These should be fairly similar to make sure you weren't on a different line. You will get alerts if some things are too far off, and errors can occur. Remember, if an error occurs, you can always go back to a previous measurement and redo it, just like we did during the linearization. Now, for the sake of this example, I only scan through once. You can of course do another set if you want to. This all depends on how accurate you want the profile to be and how much information you want it to tabulate from. You can see here the comparisons between the colors. The more scans you do, the more comparisons there'll be. After hitting OK, we've come out to here, and we can click Generate Profile. You can also do Generate as External Profile. In this case, I'm doing that so it generates outside of Ergo. And by that I mean it's just going to create a file that you can be used to bring to another computer. If we didn't click this and just click Generate Profile, it would just sync directly to the print environment we're currently using. We could still extract the profile from within Ergosoft if need be. After it goes through and generates the profile, it'll prompt you to save them out. Please excuse the little Windows error I had in the saving windows here. It can happen. It didn't affect the file one bit though. Note that it said since we're doing this externally, that it wasn't going to be used directly in Ergo at the moment. Not that you couldn't just import it once you were done. Once again, the Generate Externally checkbox is completely optional. After that's done, you'll be prompted to click OK, giving you all the current information, and you can finish it out. From here, you'll be able to save this out as it puts in its own color values and saves it out for Ergosoft itself, and it will currently be linked, in this case, to the print environment we used. Now you're all set to print with your new color values. Hopefully this video helps you do this in a pretty easy manner. I know it can be a little bit complex and there's a lot more to it than what I just described, but this was the basics and it should help you get going with using Ergosoft to do some more advanced color values and really toning in and getting a dial on your specific materials and prints.